$10,000 reward out for information leading to the conviction. Private investigator has now, a few hours ago, spoke out and has been reported on MSN.com. I will put the link in the description box below. Also has BrianLaundrie as one of his suspects. Let's get into the story. The investigation into the death of Gabby Petito, who went missing during a road trip with her boyfriend BrianLaundrie, has unearthed a potential link to another crime. Clues connecting Laundrie to the unsolved murders of Kylan, Schulte, and Crystal Turner keep emerging, and it's raising even more suspicions about Laundrie. Now, a private investigator has revealed that Laundrie is on his list of potential suspects in their murder. The couple were found shot dead in the South Mesa area after going missing several days earlier, shortly after Brian and Gabby had been in the area. And now, it is being pointed out, alleged evidence that may incriminate Laundrie in Turner and Schulte's death. The couple were found shot dead in the South Mesa area after going missing several days earlier, and that was shortly after Laundrie and Petito had been in the area. And now internet sleuths are pointing out alleged evidence that may incriminate Laundrie in Turner and Schulte's death. Utah police said that they were investigating a potential connection between these two high-profile cases that seem to have happened within just weeks of each other. The police did later clarify that the deaths were not related, but that has not stopped people from pointing out Laundrie's connection to each case. However, Jason Jensen, a private investigator who has taken on this case, has not drawn that same conclusion.
The last time that this couple was seen alive was August 13th. That happens to match a similar time frame that Gabby Petito and BrianLaundrie were in Moab. Another coincidence, Kylan worked at the co-op where Gabby and Brian reportedly had gotten into an argument. Private investigator that's taking a second look. Jason Jensen is joining us live tonight. We appreciate your time. I think a lot of people had these same questions. There's just too many coincidences here. So let's start with this creepy man. This couple moves their campsite because they saw this man. What have you learned and been able to uncover about who this was and how they're connected?
Sure. I appreciate you having me on. In light of all the circumstances that you just described, yeah, I mean, it leads a curious, reasonable mind to wonder if these two cases are connected. The problem is, though, from an investigative standpoint, is we don't know where BrianLaundrie and Gabby Petito were between the 13th and the 14th or 15th, which is actually the time frame we believe that
the timeline literally could add up that the two cases are connected. Like, we have this big split between the 13th and at least the 17th, to where no one knows what happened, literally. So, and that is odd enough to say, because that is the time that this happened to this couple. The exact times that's missing in the Petito case is the exact times this case actually came to be. Very interesting, and in my opinion, is likely connected in some way. Some way they could be connected. I've had people tell me they've even caught the one that did this. No, they haven't. Yes, there was some freaky guy that was an SA person, and he had just gotten out of prison or whatever. And yes, he was caught in that area as well. But think about it this way. If it was him, they would already know it, and he would have already been charged with it. It wasn't him, obviously. Obviously, the DNA wasn't there. Obviously, he was ruled out, because you've heard nothing else about him. So let's just put that aside. It obviously couldn't have been him, correct? Or we would have already heard, and the father still wouldn't be begging for answers on who murdered his daughter and her wife. So let's throw that speculation out the water. The guy would have already been charged with it. He's not been. Nobody's been charged with it. There's a $10,000 reward for information about this. So yeah, it's not him. This private investigator seems to think possibly that Brian is connected. Dog the Bounty Hunter, and I know so many of you have these mixed emotions about him, he thinks they could be connected. And I'm beginning to think there definitely is a possibility there.
Crystal were murdered, which would be, you indicated the last time they were seen was the 13th, which actually was nearly midnight of the 13th, so almost the 14th. And at that point, they were leaving a friend's house to go back to their camp. And at that point, they hadn't been heard and were a no-call, no-show for work at 5:30 in the morning on the 15th, which was Sunday. So all of Saturday's in play that this could have happened to them. And what I would expect to happen in light of the police encounter that Gabby Petito and BrianLaundrie encountered on the 12th, that they were separated to be apart till the 13th, the next morning. So most people would probably pack up, Gabby would drive over to the Bowen Motel, pick up Brian, and they would leave town. So unless there's some kind of evidence to show that they were actually still in town on the 14th, I would expect they took off and were somewhere else in Utah.
The timeline of all this, Jason, starts to get really complicated and trying to match up all of these. I want to go back to this. Police say the deaths of Crystal and Kylan, unfortunate, tragic, but that they are not connected to Gabby Petito's death or the search for BrianLaundrie. What is it particularly that you think there may be some connection that keeps having you come back to this one point?
Well, anyone that's been following the case knows that Kylan's father, Sean Paul, was at Moab for a whole month after the murder, and he opened in the parkway he called the clue booth, and people from all around the community was bringing information to him about, this guy's been acting weird, this guy's strange, you might want to have police look at this guy, and so forth. So he amassed a large list of potential persons of interest, and one of them we can't help but add to the list, which is BrianLaundrie, because until we can prove he was out of the area, in light of all of these circumstances that you outlined, of course, he has to be considered until he's adequately ruled out.
So you have 25 years experience as a private investigator. You took on this case pro bono because you were interested in it, yet a lot of questions that the public has about Crystal and Kylan's death, and you have put together a list of people you think could be suspects, and what you're telling me is BrianLaundrie is currently on your list based on what you have uncovered so far.
Right, including the fact that, given the fact that when they describe this guy as a creepy guy, they're not saying his name, so it's somebody.
Let me say right here, and you just heard it yourself, Brian is a suspect. In this investigator's investigation, he is a suspect in these NewleyWeds homicide. Absolutely. Even though the police have said they're not connected, the private investigator that is on this case, working this case pro bono, he is a suspect.
They're completely unfamiliar with. Obviously, somebody like a BrianLaundrie that's from out of town, they don't know who he is, so they don't know who to say is bothering them. So if it was somebody that they worked with or somebody that, they were neighbors with, they'd say, hey, Bob is bothering us, we're going to move or something. So clearly this is somebody that was giving them bad vibes that they were unfamiliar with that creeped them out. So clearly somebody that was staring at them or acting inappropriately.
Right. Well, their deaths are a tragedy, Jason, and I know you've been spending a lot of time trying to piece together this puzzle, as so many have. In fact, you're bringing out some satellite imagery to help you find evidence out there in the middle of the mountains in Utah and Wyoming.
There's a set of keys that was found near Turner and Schulte's body with a membership card for a rock climbing gym that was attached. The keys were reportedly given to Schulte's father, who turned them into the police after carrying out his own research of the item. On Laundrie's Instagram, he once shared an image of him assisting a child at a rock climbing gym, where it has been said that he once worked. We also know that Laundrie returned home to Florida from Utah on August the 17th, one day before Schulte and Turner's bodies were found, in order to empty out a storage building. And at this time, Petito stayed at a hotel for several nights until Laundrie's return on August the 24th, instead of in the couple's van. So yes, Gabby stayed at a hotel for those nights. She did not stay in that van alone. Some people have alleged that this could be a sign that Brian's keys were missing, and he returned home to pick up some spare keys. Okay, so keep in mind that the keys that were found by these women's bodies were not their keys. They don't know whose keys they were. However, the key card found had a photo of a rock climbing business somewhere, like an employee card to maybe clock in or get into the business or whatever. Well, ironically, Brian did work at one. And people have speculated that's why Gabby didn't stay in the van. It's because they didn't have any keys. And that's why he had to go all the way back to Florida to get some keys, the spare keys. Of course, that is allegedly, but, anything is possible at this point. So you have to look at the point that Gabby could have possibly, and probably did, stay at the hotel for safety reasons, and she just didn't want to sleep in the van alone by herself. But yeah, other details kind of do connect Brian to Schulte and Turner. Before she had been reported missing on August the 12th, police were called to a domestic incident that occurred in front of the Moonflower in Moab, Utah. And this is where Petito and Laundrie were fighting. As Schulte had worked as a cashier at the Moonflower Co-op for 4 years prior to her death. Kylan Schulte, which is 24, and Crystal Turner, and she is 38, they were found dead 6 days after Gabby and Brian's police run-in. No charges were issued after the incident, but Gabby and Brian also told police that stress and some undisclosed medical health issues is what caused their argument. But the NewleyWeds went on a camping trip on August the 13th. They were staying around the Moab, Utah area, but they were jumping from campsite to campsite. And Schulte and Turner were last seen leaving a local bar called Woody's Tavern at around 8:30 p.m. on that same day, the day after Brian and Gabby had been separated following their fight. And we know that the police actually took Brian and paid for it and set him up in a hotel through the night. And they sent Gabby off in the van and told her, just go find some place and take a shower. Okay, the name of the hotel they actually took Brian to was called the Bowen Hotel. It is in Moab. It is only a 7-minute walk from Woody's Tavern. And right now it has not been said, and it's unclear if anyone else even saw Brian the night of August the 12th, nor has the exact date of the newlyweds' deaths been released. And as said in the news article, while they were at the bar that night, they were talking to some friends, and they said that they was having issues with this guy. He was just really creepy, and they were just going to move to a different campground. They said they needed to move it because he was just creepy and hanging around their campsite. Now, this is what Schulte's aunt was saying. Bridget Calvert, she said this to NBC News. Okay, these are outdoor girls. They're independent. They're confident, she said. And for somebody to make them feel uncomfortable. And very soon after that, friends and family stopped hearing from the newlyweds just altogether. Okay, unsealed search warrants that was filed in court this week said that the newlywed couple were found by a friend partially undressed in a nearby creek with multiple gunshot wounds on August the 18th. On August the 24th, Brian and Gabby were seen checking out of a hotel in Salt Lake City, Utah. Okay, Gabby was last seen alive on August the 27th, and this was by a witness who saw her arguing with Brian in a restaurant in Wyoming, not far from where her body was later discovered in Grand Teton National Park. And here's the thing, Gabby's body was found in a very similar manner to what Kylan and Crystal's was. And like the couple, Gabby was discovered in a remote area near a creek at Spread Creek Dispersed Camping. So it only makes sense to see how people could actually connect these two cases, because until Brian's whereabouts can be known on these days, and there can be something added into those timelines because it's one big empty gap right there, then yeah, I definitely see how people can connect the two. Also, another thing that's been pointed out quite a lot is the picture on the left here of Gabby. And it does appear that she is holding a gun. And also, ironically, for whatever reasons, and it's not been clarified yet, but at the crime scene where Gabby was, there was several photos taken, and the FBI actually marked these with this orange paint. And many people speculate these look like bullet holes. Now, we don't know that. There's been no confirmation of it. Of course, this one has the number 15 on it. So I'm just saying, you know, many people speculate that is bullet holes, and there were several of these taken. And there again, as I say, we don't know for certain what these markings are, but, you know, each one of them, it does look like a bullet hole. I mean, I'll give it that. It does. And I believe each one of them had its own number in it, you know, sort of like evidence markers. And this is the location where the newlywed couple was actually found.
She was on the phone with my brother when she pulled up to the car. She looks at the site and sees a body and tells my...
And we all know that the Grand County Attorney, Christina Sloan, is also very much involved in both of these cases. She's very much speaking out against not only this case, but the Petito case and how the Moab Police Department handled the pullover that they was given of Brian and Gabby. I've actually made a video about that. It's right here in case you want to see it, and you haven't, of where Christina actually speaks out. There's been some uncovered emails as well. Okay, guys, tell me what you think about all this below. Do you think Brian may be connected to this case as well, such as this private investigator does, as well as many others actually believes that there could be a connection there?